This whole thing is a book of adventure.
Come on.
And what I have found, one of the elements missing in the church that causes us not to grow is that we have taken adventure out of the journey. And people think church is boring. So, hey, I have a fun story to start us with today.
Come on with it. I need a fun story.
A few years ago, I was working at a church, and the BBC reached out to us at the church. The BBC out of the UK, and they wanted to, yeah, really, that's what we did. They wanted us to do a reality TV show with them.
Wow.
And the premise was, listen, the church I was working for, amazing church, came out of some difficult seasons, looked like a church that wasn't going to survive a crisis or several crises, but then did, and it's flourishing, and it's like this resurrection story, redemption story as a church. And their premise was, listen, the church is dying in Europe. It's dying in the UK. The Church of England is not healthy and strong from their perspective at that time. Now, you and I know some different stories, but for the sake of this conversation, this is how they showed up. And so they said, would you guys come as a mega successful church to the UK and help us rescue the dying church in Wales? And so we're like,
and they were going to do a reality TV show about that.
They're going to do a whole reality TV show about this. And so we're like, listen, we're not the saviors of the world, but hey, let's at least go check it out, right? So we go to the UK, we go to Wales, and we start visiting these little churches, and they're right. I mean, they're dying. I mean, there's one church, they're all in cathedrals and all, and you walk in some of these churches through a graveyard to get inside the church. And so it's like, I mean, the church feels about...
It's a prophetic symbol.
Exactly. The church feels on the inside like what it felt like walking in. And we're meeting with, I think, 6 or 7 people in this big cathedral, and that's the entire membership of the church. And so we go to one church after another like this, and I mean, they're right, the church is dead, right? I mean, it's musky, it's smelly, it's dark, it's depressive. And then we find out that there is a community center in this little town where the youth get together on a Wednesday night to play billiards and different games and things. It's not an organized Christian event. It's just the young people in that town like to get together there. So one of the other pastors and I decide, hey, we're going to go visit this community center and see if we can talk to the young people. And so we show up, and the young people are like, who are you guys? And so we tell them we're from the United States, which that gets them all excited. Americans are here,
Yeah, and they're looking at you like, you talk funny. You don't talk like
you're not American. And I told them, South Africa is the best rugby team in the world, so be quiet.
And then you started a riot.
Pretty much, because the Welsh, we respect the Welsh incredibly in their rugby space, and I love the Welsh actually.
Yeah.
But we talk to the kids, and we say to them, listen, we're pastors. Like, we hate Christianity. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Why do you hate Christianity? And they say, because it's boring. And I'm like, what do you mean it's boring? They're like, listen, church is boring. Christianity is boring. Don't even try to convince us. And I said, okay, well, just give me a minute. So we had some worship CDs and Christian CDs that, some of our church made. And we said, can we play you a song or two? Because what does worship sound like in your church? Is like it's the organ, it's horrible, it's terrible.
Sounds like funeral music.
It is. And they're like, it sounds like someone's being buried, and And so I said, well, can I play you a song? So I played them one of our worship songs. They're like, that's incredible, that's awesome. You guys have got drums and guitar, and they're so excited. And I started talking to them about life-giving church.
Come on.
And I said to them, listen, let me ask you a question. How does this make you feel? And a couple of them turned to me and they said, if church was like that, I would go every day.
Woo!
And I said, well, why didn't you go? And they said stuff, and I could identify with them when they said this because I was in church earlier.
Yeah.
They said, it smells terrible. It's a bunch of old people that have no desire to move on. It starts early. I want to sleep late. They're like, I have nothing to prove. I would rather come here and have fun with my buds, but I don't want to go somewhere that's dead and dying. And so That, I think, set us up for this conversation. Is Christianity boring? You know, when I meet with pastors and they say, how can you help us, especially in the missional space, move the dial? I say, here is one word that I find most people say is missing in most churches: adventure.
Come on.
Because the gospel from Genesis to Revelation is this book of adventure, right? I mean, Adam and Eve, God creates them, and then he says, listen, it's all yours. Name the animals, populate the earth, have dominion, I'm with you. I mean, what an incredible adventure, right? Abraham, God calls him, leave your country, leave your father's house.
To go, who knows where?
To go to a land that I'll show you. Not that I have shown you.
Right.
Hey, as you
I
go,
will.
I'll show you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make you tons of promises and make you prosperous. And just trust me, right? This big thing of obedience and trust. It's an adventurous book. I mean, the children of Israel going into Egypt, them being in slavery, them being delivered, going through the promised land, crossing the Jordan. What an adventure. Right? Jericho, an adventure. Jesus on the boat, an adventure. This whole thing is a book of adventure.
Come on.
And what I have found, one of the elements missing in the church that causes us not to grow is that we have taken adventure out of the journey. And people think church is boring. What do you think?
I don't know where they're going to church. I think of a lot of adjectives, but boring is not one. My life is not boring, I can assure you.
Well, I know that. That's why I say this one's going to be a hard one for you to identify with.
I mean, how do you inoculate the boring out of, obedience is the inoculation for a boring.
Yeah.
You say yes to Jesus, it's not going to be boring. It's going to be edgy. It's, from the subject of risk management, what educators will tell you is if you're risk averse, meaning your highest value is avoiding risk, then you're not going to grow.
Well, and you're going to become boring.
You're not going to develop. And if boring is what you seek, then it's like there's this slow death that happens inside you. And so that I know some people are like way over here and they push all the edges and they seek risk for whatever reason. That's not what I'm talking about. But obedience to Jesus is colorful. It's dangerous. It's got teeth. It's got fulfillment. It does have boredom in it. Right? Or monotony, let's put it that way. There's monotony involved, and there's reasons for that, and God's testing character, and are you going to stay with it? But over time, I can assure you, it's anything but boring.
Well, and here's the thing. I think if you were a pastor, and I have these conversations, right? And say, how do I mitigate against boring? Here's a couple practical things. A lot of churches want people to volunteer, but they never allow people to volunteer beyond their capacity. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. I don't want to hand out candy.
Right.
Well, if a pastor's like, well, that's a sign of you don't want to submit to. It's like, no. I mean, I don't mind handing out candy. I've done it. But my ability that doesn't invite me into an adventure.
Yeah.
It's not adventurous for me to hand out candy.
There's no crackle there.
There's nothing. It's like, it's boring. Handing out candy is boring. Now for someone else, that might be exciting. That might be adventurous because it's their first time in church and they love handing out candy and it's a big deal to them. That's not adventurous to me. Right. So you as a pastor have to start cascading your volunteer opportunities to create adventurous moments for your people that challenge them to step into a space at least into their capacity or beyond. And I believe with all my heart, a vibrant missions program is the best way to make that happen. Because people going on missions, it pushes everybody's boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
There is not a singular thing you can design other than missions that can take a range of people, from the one who wants to hand out candy to the one who wants to climb Mount Everest, put them on the same team and present an environment with them that will make it adventurous.
Oh,
Missions
straight
is
up.
the only thing.
Straight up. And you got to put people like, my oldest daughter. I give this example for this kind of thing a lot. You know how with some kids, you have to show them before they realize that they wouldn't choose to do something, and then they might miss the fulfillment of adventure because they might have a reticent or whatever. And so my oldest daughter, she's like, we went to Six Flags one time, and I had to drag her onto the roller coaster. She did literally. She was like stiff-legging me. Daddy, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I was not being mean. We're going to do this one time, like just one time. And because I had a suspicion, she'll probably really like this. She just doesn't know it. I got to get her in the water. It's like when the priests cross into the promised land, there was a miracle that happened. The Jordan River parted, but they had to get in the water first.
Yeah.
Right. The river didn't part and then they walked in there. They got in the water. Their feet were wet before that miracle happened. And so anyway, drag her onto the roller coaster. We took off, and the scowl turned into the biggest smile. And then she was like dragging me, and we like went around and around. It wasn't big lines then with that particular day we were there. And we rode that thing 6 or 7 times. I don't remember exactly, but it was a bunch in a row. Daddy, let's do it again. Daddy, let's do it again. Daddy, let's do it again. She discovered, wow, this is awesome. Why? Whatever it was about it that she liked, I don't know. I never really asked her, but the point is, it's like sometimes certainly if you're not framing opportunities, people won't know. It's like society now. There's a going thing that is one of my pet peeves, and so I'm fixing to say it. Like, boys just don't like to go camping now.
Oh. Yeah,
because they're into ABC, but yet we gripe and complain because they're stuck to the screen. No, boys don't like camping because they've never been shown. You got to sort of make them go, sell them, drag them, do something, take them out there, and then maybe all of them aren't going to resonate, but some of them are going to come alive in a way that they didn't know existed. You put them in it. And then it's like it's working with boys in like outdoor education. As boys go through their cycle of age, it's one level of capsule of adventure that holds a 12-year-old's attention. A lot easier to do that. Yeah. 16 years old? Oh no, like 16-year-old boy. Now he's turned from Boy Scout to Girl Scout. Like, he's interested in the girls. And so what do I do? And if you keep engaging with that 16-year-old with the boring, monotonous stuff that crackled and the passing out candy idea that captivated the heart and the imagination of the 12-year-old, that's what you keep delivering them, well, then you're going to lose them. They're not going to be interested. But if you go that exponential adventure curve, and it gets pretty steep, right?
Yep.
But like for me, I never thought my dad was stupid. You know how a lot of teenagers, they go through this cycle where they go through this thing where you think your parents are stupid, and then all of a sudden life hits, and then you realize how brilliant they were. Well, I never went through that with my dad. Why? Because he engaged me in things. He was an engineer. We built things, and he threw me out there and gave me problems to solve, and we did epic things together. Like, I still will tell you to this day, I think my dad could figure out anything structurally.
So one of the things, so 2 things I want to mention. Your story, I have the same story about the roller coaster with my son. when I put him on the roller coaster, it looked like he was going to throw up. I mean, he literally was green in the face, scared out of his mind. After we did it, he's like, this is the best day of my life. Let's do it again. And we did it, I don't know how many times. I almost threw up by the time we finished. And so, but here's what I learned about that. A lot of leaders want to pull people towards them or pull them into what they think should appeal to you as adventure. That's not how adventure works. You got to push people into adventure.
That's right.
You got to push them somewhat against their will into something bigger than them, something they fear, something they're uncertain about. Adventure is this place of the unknown. And if the only opportunity you have for people is something known, good luck. You're going to have a boring church.
Oh, yes.
You got to have things that are unknown, that are mysterious, where God can meet them, speak to them, reveal himself to them. Adventure has to be, number one, something you push people into. And number two, it is something you got to build and cascade. Because even when we did short-term mission trips and we had many, many teams, we used to have levels of engagement. Like, listen, if this is your first trip, you're really scared. You've never even left the state, but we're asking you to go to another country. Listen, I'm not going to take you to India on in the middle of the summer on a very difficult missions trip, right? I'm going to take you maybe somewhere a little more, closer to home.
Yep.
A little more closer to identifying as culture. Doesn't mean you're not going to, be on an adventure. It's not going to be the same food. It's not going to be the same accommodations, but you're going to be on a pure adventure. And then when you come back, now we're going to take you on a more adventurous experience. And so I think missions is a tool that every church should focus on. And here's the unfortunate reality that I've realized, and it comes back to our little stewardship conversation in church and everything. When churches go through tough times, and they have to cut budgets. And I've seen this time and time again. The first area that gets cut is missions.
Yeah.
People will cut their missions budget before they cut their marketing budget. Mm-hmm. And so we gotta bring adventure back into the narrative. I think our messages have to be adventurous. Our engagement, our invitation, our small groups, our volunteer opportunities, everything has to be adventurous. And if it's not adventurous, your church is going to be boring.
Well, and some people are listening to us. You might be listening to us going, okay, there you go again. Like you want us to get people hurt. But there's another aspect of infusing adventure into the equation. You can have hardened cases, people would have hard hearts or whatever. So like I can take that, like what we have, in Mountain Gateway, we have a big culture of wilderness ministry, experiential education. And like in our academy, we take people, on multi-week, 30 to 60 day backpacking leadership excursions. And we put on a backpack and we go to these wilderness areas that are dangerous. And I've tried this and we've done this before. You could take a hardened gang member that wouldn't give me the time of day. And if I can get a backpack on his back and I take him out there where there's a grizzly bear that can eat him, that can crunch his head, he will recognize it and begin to listen to me. Mm. And the same thing, because, you can tell when somebody's comfortable in an environment that you are not.
Yeah.
Right? Backcountry competency and all those things are tools for breaking down resistance or a hard heart and to move people down the scale, to get them to be willing to understand. Number one, in some cases, risk is the thing that's necessary to be able to live in the reality of the first tenet that shows up in the Lord's Prayer. And what is that? Hallowed be your name. There's something bigger than me. You're greater than I am. How can I, like in the wilderness example, there's something out there bigger than me, stronger than me, greater than me, faster than me. It can eat me.
Yeah, and I think...
And that's not a bad equation.
No, I think...
You know what I'm saying?
Totally. I mean, I think for a lot of people, the monotony of life is because they don't ever observe something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
right? And I think the church, I mean, God is a God of adventure. We're created in his image.
Amen.
We should be people of adventure. You know, we do this. This is kind of funny. We do this in our family. I take the kids, each on their own. I try to every year take them on a trip. Now, because I'm Afrikaans, we call a man in Afrikaans, so we call it a manne trip. So when I take Isaiah, my son, it's just the two of us. But he gets to pick where we go.
Come on.
Right? And we do 2 days, 3 days, at least 2 overnights, or
Yeah.
3. We did during COVID, we did 1 overnight. But he gets to pick where we go. And then once we book the tickets, he's in charge. Right? And now it has become, when we go on a family vacation, they fight about this. Like, who gets to take us to the next gate when we fly? Who gets to take us through security? They want this mysterious ownership of, you know, how do they get to do the adventures?
It's essential for their growth and development.
Totally. And so I go with Isaiah on a 3-day trip, but he gets to do everything. We get dropped off at the airport. I'm like, okay, you got to check us in. You got to walk us through security. You got to take us to the next gate. If we have a terminal change, I'm not telling you where we're going. You got to figure it out on the ticket, and you know, take us.
He's going to think a lot of things about that,
and they love it.
He might like it, he might not like it, but one thing he's not going to say is this is boring.
No, he loves it, and now I get bothered by them. When are we doing this? People want adventure, right? And it's so funny because someone bought my wife a book because they're like, I think this will help you understand your husband better. And now I haven't read it yet because it was given to her, and then now I want to read it. But the title of the book is I Married Adventure.
Come on.
Right? And that's the thing. Be married to adventure and make sure your spouse is married to adventure. And I think this will solve a lot of marital stuff too.
For sure. You know, our society is we're such a melting pot, and things have morphed together so much. We don't really get the concept of rites of passage.
Yeah.
You know, you're from Africa.
Yeah.
I don't know about the tribes that are in South Africa.
Oh, no,
or whatever.
it's massive. It's massive.
But I know, like, in the Maasai tribe, you can't become a man until you kill a lion.
Yeah.
You know, and there are people that are trying to work that out of their society, but you know, they do it with a rod and a club, or a spear and a club, or whatever. And it starts when they're 12 years old. I think there's a range, you know, between 12 and 18 years old or whatever. They're going to go through this rite of passage. And the day is going to come where they're going to get pushed out there and they got to go kill the lion, right?
Yeah.
And they are not up to it when it's their turn to step across the line. And anthropologists refer to this as the liminal space or the liminal threshold. What is required of you in their society for them to be recognized as a man, they have to do this. So there's pressure. And so they have this assumption like, this is expected of me, but I'm not up to it. And so this disconcerting, you know, anthropologists refer to this as the liminal space. Well, I think it's probably not boring.
No.
Right? But the thing is you have men that have gone in front of you that help you go through this adventure. It goes in this ratcheting cycle, or it's not a straight linear curve like this. It goes up. There's peaks and valleys as you go through the process. And the people that have been in front of you sort of scaffold you up and help you navigate that. But it's the process of becoming what's expected of you, but you are not yet. And it's the space of transformation and growth. And it's all through the Bible. Faith works that way. God does that with us. And it can't really happen without that element of adventure and risk, because adventure and risk go together. You can't have an adventure really without some elements of risk.
Not. Absolutely
not. You know, as you got to take a risk. And then what happens? What happens when I did it? It worked. You know,
and then you want to do more of it.
Yes.
It fires your neurons, your energy, your all kinds of chemicals in your body, and you're like, let's do it again. Just like our kids were like, okay, let's do it again. I want to do it again.
Do it again.
Do it again.
Yeah.
And then it's like with my son, when we did the roller coaster thing, he was so scared, want to throw up on this roller coaster. When we finished that, he's like, I want to do the bigger one now. You know, I mean, all of a sudden, adventure also breeds courage.
It does. And,
you know,
and transformation, and it causes your brain to develop in ways. And so why is that necessary? What I'm not saying is that they just turn into adrenaline junkies, like all these guys on YouTube that do all this space jumping and other things. They have no other purpose in their life. That's not what we're talking about. But how can you say yes to God in the unknown, which is what faith is, without learning how to walk through this process? And it's our responsibility as parents and as disciplers to help people engage with that. Well, if their feeling is like those kids in England going, it's boring, it stinks, it's like it hasn't changed in the last 300 years. It's just, it's dead. I don't want to be a part of anything that's dead. There's nothing there. There's nothing that encourages the culturalization or the habit formed into. What does it say about faith? Without faith, it's impossible to please God, and what is not of faith is sin. So this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? Risk is the thing that pushes the pressure against faith. You have to push against risk.
Yeah.
Right?
It's risky.
Without true risk, like the consequences have to be real. Without true risk, faith is not engaged to produce anything except the ordinary. And so if faith is essential, it can't be done without adventure. So if you're a pastor, if you're a leader, if you're a mom, you're a dad, I'm sorry, you're just stuck. It's your responsibility to lead people into this equation. You don't say, well, that's not me. No, that's intrinsically the gospel.
Yeah. And it is our responsibility as parents, as pastors, as leaders, to create opportunities for people to be faithful and obedient and take risks. And if we're not creating opportunities for risk, opportunities for faithfulness, opportunities for adventure, I think we're going to end up with a boring church. Coming back to the Wales story, we went back to the churches and we reported on our findings to say, listen, we talked to the young people in this town and you should be excited. They all want to come to church. They're like, really? I'm like, yes. I mean, we have dozens of kids, literally. That night we had like 250 kids at that community center. I'm like, they want to come to church. I'm like, that's awesome. I said, but you're going to have to make a few changes and they'll come. You have to put a ping pong table in one of these rooms so they can play ping pong. We're not going to do that. You gotta play more music, maybe just a little bongo drum, like maybe not a full set start with bongo. No, we're not gonna put drums in the church because God does not like that. Okay, we're like giving them one thing after another to say, these kids said they will come to church if not you change the message. You don't have to change the gospel. You just have to change the environment because your environment is boring. We're not going to do it. And so we collectively then as a team said, you know what?
This is not going to go anywhere.
I don't care what kind of a reality show you make. This ain't going to go nowhere because, and besides, we weren't going to do the reality show anyway because it's not our job.
Right.
That is the job of the Holy Spirit to move his church, grow his church. And now we see all over Europe and the UK and Wales, vibrant churches being planted that have captured this idea of excellence and adventure, and the church is being mobilized out of Wales into the nations of the world. And I have a good friend in Wales that always talks about this. And our church actually did end up in Wales with the restoration ministries and visiting a lot of churches. Awesome. And there was a lot of adventure at the end of the day for them and for us. And to this day, people talk about our journey into Wales because it was an adventurous thing. And so I think at the end of the day, all we're trying to say is you and I, this is a hard topic because when they're like, hey, talk about boring church. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Me either. I don't know.
I don't have that acumen and that grid, except I remember the story from Wales about the boring church. But we're both missions guys. We're in the nations all the time. Every time I get on a plane, it's an adventure.
Oh yeah.
Every single time, domestic or international.
Now to be clear, sometimes adventures don't feel good.
No, when you're going through security, and I've got a funny story. You know, I don't look very American. I look Middle Eastern. And so I get randomly screened all the time. And I was going through an airport in Alabama last year, Birmingham, I think.
It would be Alabama.
Well, it's everywhere.
This happened.
And the lady's like, hey, random. You know, and I got so frustrated in that moment. I said, it's not random. And she's like, what do you mean it's not random? I said, this is not random. I'm like, this is special. And she looked at me and she's like, okay, then one special over here, you know? So it was funny. But then I was on a flight too in Dubai. And again, I got pulled aside in security. I mean, I've been in security in my underwear. I mean, this is how bad it is for me. I was in Dubai and they pulled me aside again. And I was like, seriously? And I walked over to the security guy. He's like, oh, you're pulled aside for a security check. And I'm like, why? It's like, and he was like, no one asks why. And I said, why? He's like, what do you mean why? I said, I look like you. I look like you. Why are you pulling me aside? And he looked at me and he started smiling. He's like, you are right. You can go. So we have all these adventurous stories, like airports are adventurous, domestically, internationally. Just getting on a plane is an adventure. So what I've discovered is, obviously, you know, I got to hold someone like you back, because you just want to say, when we talk about adventure, you want to take people on a 30-day backpack experience.
90 days in the wilderness.
Mountains. And some people are like, listen, it's an adventure just to walk to the grocery store versus driving there, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
we got to also think this adventure elephant, you eat one bite at a time. But adventure is contagious, right? You do a little bit now and you're like, oh, I want to do a little more. Oh, I like how that feels. I want to do a little more. And so adventure is this progressive thing. And if someone's stuck and they're like, man, I think I'm an adventurous person, but you know, I don't know how to even start on the adventure.
Yeah, they're stuck, but they're resonating with this, and no one around them will lead them through the creation of an opportunity. So what do?
So I think, again, we're going to get a lot of people calling us and emailing us, and I'm happy. We'll take you on an adventure. Email us at gatewaytomercy@mountaingateway.org and share with us your story, share with us your desire, share with us your question. And if we can help you, maybe it's not an adventure that we design and you go on to, but maybe it's some questions we help you navigate and some opportunities in your own space that we can help you navigate. Reach out. We want to help people move into the call of the Lord on their lives.
Amen.
And adventure is part of that. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining the Gateway to Mercy podcast today. Please like, share, subscribe. Tell as many people as you can about us. And if you have any questions, any thoughts that you want to share, email us at gatewaytomercy@mountaingateway.org. Have a good day.